Elizabeth. Hi. I grew up being what some would consider a tomboy and not naturally drawn to stereotypical feminine things. Now I'm a young adult and I find that I can appreciate the beauty of motherhood of other women, but I don't particularly desire it myself. I know the TOB reveals to us that we are all called to be mothers, whether we are called to biological or spiritual motherhood. That being said, the more I ponder this issue, the more I realize that there might be something off in my understanding of femininity. Do you have any advice on how I could stir my longing for motherhood? I love this question. Because if you're asking this question, then you are at the point where your heart is disposed to hear the answer. In this post-feminist movement era, where, to sum it up, people, well-intentioned women who understood the dignity of women, or at least tried to get that dignity universally upheld, they did so as a whole, broadly speaking, by trying to eradicate femininity and make women more like men. And now this generation of people, our generation of people, have grown up in a world where things of traditional femininity, like being a wife, being a mother, being a homemaker, like those sorts of things, are completely devalued and are seen as way less than having a career and doing something outside the home. We've just drunk this water, all of us. And so it's not surprising that women find themselves not really desiring motherhood, right? When we've bought into this lie, we've drank this Kool-Aid, so to speak, of all of the things that naturally come with femininity in adulthood being devalued, being something not precious. So I think, first of all, if you're not already there, recognizing in your heart that you have this void of a desire. Obviously, people asking this question, this woman and other people, they already are in touch with that desire. So that's great. But if you're not in touch with it, do some honest soul searching and being in touch with it. The next thing I want to do is I really want to tell this woman to challenge the ideas that have kind of led to her being here and not really appreciating motherhood. There's a phenomenal quote that says something to the effect of, why is it considered a great career to teach other people's children the rules of three, but it's considered a small task to teach your own children about everything in the world? It's topsy-turvy to think that it's so much better to be something to a lot of people than to be everything to someone. It actually just defies logic that we have gotten to the point where the incredible role of motherhood has been devalued. So that's the thing, the second thing I want to do once you've established that you have this void in your desires, to recognize the truth and goodness and beauty of motherhood, right? And how that compares to the outside the home things. There are so many different things that you can do to tap into this thing, from reading books to reading the primary sources of the church, to honestly to praying the rosary and just asking Mama Mary to show you the incredible role that she played in the life of the Savior and then the life of all of us Christians, all of humanity really, because Jesus chose to come to us through the womb of a mother. So there are so many ways that you could explore that, but for the sake of brevity, I'll just say find something that you want to read that discusses motherhood, or find a video you want to watch or a podcast that you want to listen to that really goes in depth about this idea and exploring this idea. The next thing that I want to say is consider who you're surrounding yourself with, okay? If you're surrounding yourself with a lot of people, women and men, who don't value motherhood, even if they're living, career lives, or they're single people and none of them are mothers, that's fine. It's how they talk about motherhood, right? And how they think about motherhood and how it's framed. If your group of friends all thinks that motherhood is going to be the death of everything that you love and all your dreams are going to die, well, then that's going to totally seep into the way that you are thinking. But if you surround yourself with people who see the beauty and dignity of motherhood, that's also going to affect how you're thinking. It can be kind of scary to scrap all your friends and find new ones, but maybe that's what needs to happen. Usually it's not quite that extreme, but it might be for some people. And being in a place where you recognize I need to surround myself with wholesome people who share my values or who share the ideals of the values that I want to aspire to, that's huge. And the way that you talk about it in your group of friends and the way that you guys think about your future and dream about motherhood, that's going to really affect your posture. So that's another one. Think about who you're surrounding yourself with. And then this last piece of advice is kind of strange, but sit with me. I want you to explore your relationship with your menstrual cycle. So what's fascinating about the feminine body, and I know I have a significant male audience, and so some of you may not understand the menstrual cycle, so I'm going to briefly just say what it is and how it works. And if you're a woman and you get it, still listen, because we aren't always given the formation to understand exactly how it's working. So every woman's cycle, about monthly, right? usually 28 to 32-ish days is normal. And you have 4 stages of that cycle. So you have the stage where you're bleeding, which is where you're shedding the lining that would have sustained a baby if a baby had been conceived. So you're bleeding, and then your body is building up. After that, your body is building up that lining again for the next try that you may have a baby. Then your body is ovulating. So that's the time where you're fertile, where the egg is there. And then if a sperm meets that egg, then there's a baby conceived, then that baby implants in the uterine lining. And then the luteal phase is the next phase after ovulation. And that's where the body is preparing to like nourish and is actually nourishing the brand new baby that is implanting and is starting to grow. And then if at the end of that luteal phase, if there isn't a baby there, then the woman starts bleeding and sheds that lining, and the whole process starts over. So there are so many things about this particular cycle of a woman's body that is extremely significant to the heart of the woman. So the vast majority of women are introduced to this cycle, men too, to be honest, are introduced to the idea of this cycle in like early to mid elementary school, and it's done in like a shameful way. Like I've heard lots of stories about how like the boys are shooed out of the room and the girls are given this talk, and they're maybe given like a pad or something, like a tangible pad. And then they have to like hide it in their backpacks before the boys come back. And then there's all this like mystery and secrecy around it. And the boys are like, what do you talk about? And the girls are like super embarrassed. Like, oh, I'm so grateful that there are so many people out there who are working to eradicate this like terrible way that the menstrual cycle is introduced to young children, and are working to help equip parents and educators to speak about all of this in a beautiful, positive light. So I think it's important to realize like the introduction to the menstrual cycle, which is the application of your femininity in a lot of ways. It's what makes us different from men. If it came with a lot of embarrassment and a lot of shame, then it's understandable that your first instinct was to like shut it down. And I don't want anything to do with this. I want you to think through this woman in particular, and all women really, and men, if you're dating someone and you're discerning marriage with them, if you can ask this in a respectful way and you're close enough to your girlfriend to ask, this is a question to ask. What was your experience like of starting your period for the first time? Almost every woman will have a memory of it because it's hugely significant. And the vast majority of them are really negative, honestly, which is devastating. But that sets the stage. Like you're going to have a menstrual cycle, hopefully, if you're healthy, every month for like, I don't know, 4 decades, 3 decades, 4 decades. Like it's a lot. And a lot of them are tied up in the emotional responses of the first few, which just makes sense, right? Like the body keeps a score. So the body remembers your experience of it. And like every month that can come back at you in some form or another. And then to top it off, a lot of women have hormonal dysfunctions, and so they have tons of pain. If no one's ever told you that your period shouldn't be painful, let me be the first to tell you, it should not be painful. If you have pain with your periods, there's something wrong. And look up a NAPRO doctor, Natural Procreative Technology, a NAPRO doctor, to help get to the root of the pain and treat the pain. But a lot of women are told that it's normal, but even by their obstetricians and gynecologists are told that it's normal. And so we have this idea that like this painful thing that happens every month is like a curse. Even if it's not painful, people call it a curse, right? The curse is coming or whatever. And that all of that frame around your femininity, which honestly is around your motherhood, right? Because motherhood comes through that menstrual cycle. All of that affects the way that you then look at your motherhood. And we've gotten in this contraceptive culture, we've separated out things like the menstrual cycle from our understanding of parenthood. And we need to bring them back together because our hearts know that they're meant to be together. And we don't consciously recognize this void, this like rupture that the culture has given us, but we do on an unconscious level. And it's manifesting in like, I don't want to be a mom, right? Or I have no desire for motherhood. Well, let's integrate this back in, right? Like body, mind, soul, like let's integrate all of this and recognize that the way that you view your cycle is going to affect the way you view motherhood. Now, also the way that you view children is going to affect the way you view motherhood. So there are a lot of women in this day and age when family sizes are shrinking who've never even been around babies. I know a number of women who the first time they ever held a baby was when they were given their own baby in the hospital right after they delivered that baby. It's not as rare as you might think. A lot of women just aren't around children very much. They have only heard the negative things. Maybe they haven't heard the positive things, etc. So you can also explore your relationship to children. If you have if you're looking to stir up your desire for motherhood and you're going to a Catholic parish and you maybe don't have anybody in your family or your friends who have babies that you can talk to, but if you can get to know some families with young children in your parish, that's a way to like get to know babies and expose yourself to babies and like the beautiful pieces of motherhood. There are hard pieces, but the hard is framed with the good, and the good far outweighs the negative. So exposing yourself to young families can also be a good idea. But I really think the core of what I want to communicate is like the way that you view and interact with your menstrual cycle and psychologically think about it and how that fits into the context of the rest of your life. I feel like that is the first step. If you are not desiring motherhood, let's look at how your posture is towards your cycle. And my guess, there's not research on this that I have seen, but my guess is like the vast majority of people who have issues with motherhood also have issues with their just fertility in general. So those are my thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts about this. Please leave a comment or send me a message on Instagram at Discerning Marriage. I would love to continue this conversation. And until next time, stay close to the heart of Jesus and be not afraid. Bye.